What's going on, everybody? Well, something has dropped online in the movie universe that I wanted to discuss. They're talking about where the direction is going to be going with Deadpool 2 and Deadpool 3 and eventually X-Force. And alongside their news with that, they're also discussing already going to go ahead and once again reboot the X-Men universe. And, I've read a lot of people's opinions. I've watched a lot of YouTube videos, people talking about it, and a lot of people seem really optimistic about that decision, with all the continuity errors in the current X-Men universe, the fact that Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman are no longer going to be in this franchise. That would be a nice little footnote to kind of begin and end the franchise with. And, people had their opinions about X-Men Apocalypse. So a lot of people are saying, okay, go ahead, reboot it, it's time. And I think I'm going to be one of the few people who, I'm on the opposite end of that. X-Men has already rebooted itself so many times that I feel like they will be running into the problem that we had whenever people, like at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2, when the critical just demolishing of that movie came out, and they said, okay, well, you know what, we're gonna reboot the franchise once again. And even though we're going to be getting some amazing things out of Marvel, hopefully that's because it's going back to Marvel. It didn't stay with Fox. Now, had Fox rebooted that Spider-Man franchise for a second time, it would not have worked. And that's what we're going to be running into with the X-Men universe, I fear. We rebooted it with First Class. We pretty much rebooted it again at the end of Days of Future Past. It reset the entire timeline. It wiped clean all the movies that we didn't like and kind of continued our storyline forward. And even to a degree, it was somewhat of a reboot with Apocalypse. Even though it was continuing the story, we're getting a rebooted version of all the characters that we knew from the first movie. Cyclops, Jean Grey, Nightcrawler. So in itself, that movie was somewhat of a reboot too. So there's this reboot flavor going throughout the whole X-Men universe. And even though this is the longest running superhero universe by far, like almost 15 years, I still don't think that they need to do a reboot yet. They put so many things in Apocalypse, whether or not you thought that movie worked or not, they put so many things in there to lead to eventually more stories. What happened with Havoc, the Dark Phoenix saga that we have been waiting for and waiting for and waiting for. Now you're going to reboot it again, and we're going to have to wait even longer, maybe not even ever get that storyline. To me, it sounds like a bad decision. I think what they need to do is go ahead and go forward with your Deadpool movies. I don't think Deadpool needs to be a cinematic universe with X-Men. I think Deadpool survives just fine on its own. You can do little other versions of X-Men characters like they did with Colossus, and it works. Nobody was confused about Colossus in that movie. Well, that's not the Colossus I saw in X2. Nobody was confused by that. It worked. Nobody asked those questions. So I think they can continue with that just fine. Hopefully Logan is amazing and Wolverine gets a great send-off. Professor X, Patrick Stewart's version, gets a great send-off, but I don't think that they're going to be running into problems with not having Wolverine in movies for a little while. I think that they can continue the story of this new cast of X-Men just fine and not have Wolverine in it. And that's not to say, honestly, that, maybe Hugh Jackman pops up for a cameo here and there, maybe 2 or 3 movies down the road like you did with First Class. But I don't think it's going to really detract from the movies as long as they are made well and they have a good story to tell. There's so many directions that I want to see with this new cast that they just introduced to us that I liked very much, that I don't want to see it rebooted again. One thing that I am looking forward to is if you just get rid of Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique. I don't think we need Mystique, period, but at least get rid of hers. I don't think we need to have her back. They said that they're writing this reboot storyline with optimism, is how they kind of phrase it. Optimism that McAvoy, Fassbender, and Jennifer Lawrence are all going to come back. But to me, that tells me that nobody's really enthused about this, so they're just saying that to kind of show respect to them. Like, oh yeah, we know you guys love them, we love them too, so we're hoping they're going to come back. I don't think they're coming back. And I don't think it's going to be a bad thing. We can skip forward in time a little bit. It was already starting to really push the timeline with how old McAvoy and Fassbender were supposed to be, because we were introduced to them in the 70s or the 60s, and then suddenly in Apocalypse is the 80s and they look exactly the same. So it was, they're pushing that anyway. They can recast those 2 roles again and continue on with these new character or this new cast of Ty Sheridan and the other 2. And the stories will work out just fine. There are so many X-Men stories that we can see that they don't need to reboot it to tell them. People want to see that damn Dark Phoenix saga. Give that to us in the next movie. People are sick of waiting. The version that you gave us in The Last Stand was a fucking joke. Give it to us. We've been asking for it for forever. Do not reboot this and, give the middle finger to your fans and make us wait even longer. So that's my whole view on this X-Men universe. I don't think that we need a reboot. I think they can continue just fine, separate from the Deadpool universe, and it will work just fine. Just get a coherent story. Get one mind on it like you had with Bryan Singer at first. Don't be jumbling things and hiring this guy for this movie and this guy for this movie. If you are, have somebody like Kevin Feige behind the scenes who is going to make sure that this franchise stays on one road. Because that's the main problem we've had with this franchise is you have 2 movies that kind of exist on their own, and then 1 movie that seems separate from the timeline, and then, you have the Wolverine where events happen there, and then Days of Future Past comes in, and First Class comes in, and it seems to ignore things of the past, yet they still reference things from the past, so just the timeline in those movies are a fucking nightmare, like a Rubik's Cube trying to figure out. So as long as you continue on having somebody with a clear vision for the franchise and a story direction and where they eventually want to lead to, and you stick to that path, I don't think you need to do a reboot. Stick with your cast that you just introduced us to that pretty much everybody liked. I don't think that hardly any criticisms for Apocalypse was on the new cast. It was more with the villain and Jennifer Lawrence and some of the story choices. Stick with that cast. Deliver us some good movies. Stick to your course. Have your Deadpool universe separate. It'll work just fine. And continue from there. So that's my thoughts. What do you guys think? Do you think we need a reboot? Do you think it's too soon for a reboot? Do you want to see the Apocalypse cast carried on? Or are you done with this franchise and you just want an entire reboot? You want to start over from scratch? Put all that in the comment section below and let's talk about it. Please like and share this video and hit that subscribe button. That way you get to come back and see me next time. But if that's not soon enough to check out some more of my videos, you can check out a few more by clicking right over here.